If there's anything that Jonah Hill's situation has been clear on, is that we really do not understand the term boundaries. And a lot of us don't want to.
Y'all don't know what time it is. I got the black V-neck on.
I want to talk about Jonah Hill and boundaries because this is something I've been thinking about for quite a while, and the Jonah Hill situation has now shown me that a lot of us truly do not understand what boundaries mean, and a lot of us have been using it to be controlling. So I've honestly been talking about it a little bit, and I've been ready for this conversation, especially after seeing everybody's reaction to the show Summer House. And one of the guys on there who was married, named Silas, has been very controlling. And like in conversations and just seeing people and how they react to Silas and how people were saying, well, it's not really wrong for him to want his wife to be home at a certain time. That's his boundary. And I'm like, no, that's not a boundary. That is control. And now we've seen Jonah Hill's ex-girlfriend, who is a surfer. She has now posted text messages of their conversations, and now you see Jonah Hill, you know, how he's talking to her, how he's telling her to not post certain photos, even though she's a surfer. This is stuff that she's been doing before she met him, probably how he met her. She was doing these things. So now he is trying to change who she is. And you now have folks saying, well, that's his boundary. And I'm like, that is not what a boundary is. A boundary is about you. So before doing this video, I went and I looked, because I want to make sure that I was right. I went and looked at a couple of therapists and stuff, and they were talking about boundaries. Now, it's been really taken off on TikTok because a lot of folks have been using therapist language to be toxic. They've been taking and manipulating conversations and stuff that therapists have been having online and misrepresenting the facts and the information and how to move and how to set boundaries. I've been doing a lot of like internal thinking because I'm starting to see people with language and information just as dangerous as preachers and pastors who, you know, misrepresent what Jesus was talking about in the Bible and stuff to speak on something that they want. Like we've seen the manipulation of the word of the word of the Bible and all the other stuff. We've seen people use it to justify the things that they've done. I mean, people have even used that, and specific people have used that to even justify slavery. So you see how dangerous when people have information and people do not, and they don't have access to it, how it becomes lost. And I'm seeing this with the boundaries conversation. So a boundary is something that you set. It's all about you. It's all about what you want to do and how you want to protect yourself. I've had to learn this because I am a black, gay, fat, dark-skinned, queer, HIV positive person, and I've had to remove myself from spaces and distance myself from some folks who do not have the same politic as me when it comes to things. And not even just that, even with family members who say something like, oh, I don't accept your lifestyle, or I don't believe in gay people, I don't believe in this thing. And I'm like, well, I know what you believe, but for Justin does not want to be around anyone who thinks like that, because if you think like that, more than likely you're going to treat me. And I just don't want to be in any space with anyone who thinks negatively of queer people or gay people. I just don't want to be around that. So I remove myself from folks like that. I'm not asking. I'll have a conversation about change and help them understand, why they see it that way. So I wouldn't necessarily say change, but like inform them of how this ideology hurts other people. And if they choose not to and they engage in conversation in bad faith, my boundary is just remove myself. I do not want to be in this space. I don't want to be in that. I think me and my mother we have a little bit of a boundary when it comes to religion. She doesn't bring it up. She doesn't talk about it. I don't talk about it. I mean, we try to do the best we can to respect each other. We both try to do the same for each other. Sometimes it doesn't always, because, you know, one thing Christians gonna do, they gonna Christian. But that is, you know, some of the things I've had to understand when it comes to boundaries. But I say this to get to the point about Jonah Hill and the text messages and him requesting his girlfriend, his now ex-girlfriend, to do certain things because he is insecure. And people were justifying and saying, well, you know, he's not wrong to ask her not to show certain things. And a lot of women have came forward and have shared experiences they have had of men being narcissistic and insecure and using boundaries to control them. And, you know, one thing about it, I see these things as, how do I say it? Because a couple of people put it together so beautifully on Twitter, on social media, that we don't want to see people like this as abusers because it would put a mirror in front of ourselves. And I think that is a lot of truth. You requesting certain things of your partner and demanding things and controlling things is a level of abuse. I think that this enlightening of this came to me after my last relationship, and realizing that when my partner was doing things that were just like, I don't know, it was just out of the ordinary, I was trying to control them. I should have stuck with my boundary. But instead, I tried to control the situation. I tried to do certain things, and it didn't do anything but hurt me in the end. So now I'm looking back at these things, and now when I hear certain folks say certain stuff, I'm like, this is controlling. Like, we saw this conversation about Usher, you know, serenading Keke Palmer, and how people responded to that. They were saying that, oh, this is disrespectful. We saw the same thing with homeboy Chance the Rapper, who was out at I think Carnival and was getting danced on, and people were saying certain stuff. I'm not gonna be out here defending cishet men. I'm just not trying my best not to. But the serenading of Keke Palmer, and how Keke Palmer's baby daddy came online and said some stuff and was just like, but you a mother. He didn't have any issue with the outfit. He didn't have any issue with Usher singing and stuff like everybody had thought, but he did have an issue with her outfit and was saying that you're a mother and he has to represent for his family. If he felt like he needs to represent or whatever for his family, and he didn't like things like that, he would have saw that Keke Palmer has always been like this, and her being a mother should not change how she is. She can still be sexy. She still has autonomy over her own body. But now some folks were trying to, like, some cishet men were using this and were saying that this is a boundary for him, and y'all disrespect boundaries. Because one thing these folks gonna do, the stuff that they don't believe in, the stuff that they clearly don't want to ever hear, don't ever talk about, they'll try to throw it in the face. I thought y'all said boundaries. It's like, girl, y'all have not been talking about boundaries. Y'all have not been having conversations about these things. Like, there's conversations about, I'm gonna give you an example. There's conversations about the mental health of men and how men can be victims. And time again, when folks have conversations and include men into conversations about them being victims, it's a joke. It's a joke, and they laugh it off. Like, even when Terry Crews was speaking about his experience, like, cishet men, including 50 Cent, dragged him and made fun of him about these things. But now when something happens, it's like, oh, well, why y'all ain't bringing this up? It's like, we have been having these conversations. You just have not been interested in them because it didn't benefit you. So that, like, you see how that works? So in this conversation about boundaries, he was trying to control Keke Palmer. He was trying to control her actions and how she moves and people were justifying it, saying it was boundaries. We see the same thing with Jonah Hill. When she posted the text messages, people were saying, oh, these conversations should be private. We shouldn't be having these conversations in public. She's posting these text messages for clout, And so it's as the victim needs to show proof, but don't show proof. Because when folks make accusations and they say things like, yeah, we don't want to believe them. They say, hey, this stuff happened to me. Then it's, oh, well, why didn't you go to the police? Why didn't you show me proof? And then when they do that, it's, oh, it's clout, it's attention. See how this works? See how all of this works? Which is why we should believe the victim from the very, very beginning. Because it doesn't matter what the victim does. They're not going to be perfect. They're going to get picked apart. Honestly, sounds like the justice system. Sounds like the U.S. justice system. And we see this with his ex-girlfriend sharing the text messages. And looking at some of these text messages, I'm not posting a screenshot of some of them, but these text messages, he was just being an ass. He was being an ass, like telling her to take pictures down, she couldn't have this picture, and, I'm a good guy, and I don't care what your therapist is saying. Your therapist sees me as a bad person. Anybody who's talking like that, leave if you can. Like, leave if you can. And there was nothing about what Jonah Hill was saying to her that was a boundary. He was trying to control her. Once he, as messed up as it is, because I'm going to get to that point in a minute, he could have just removed himself from it. He did not. He chose not to. And I feel like what's missing sometimes from the boundary conversation is some people use the term boundaries, but they don't want to discuss why they have these boundaries. So I cannot request someone do something or demand somebody do something, period. And the reason why I'm setting quote unquote boundary is because of my insecurity. I don't want you to go to the club and receive free drinks from men, because I don't want something to happen to you, when it's truly, I don't trust you to be able to say no. I don't trust you to be able to say no or whatever. And at the end of the day, if your partner does cheat or whatever, they're going to do it no matter what boundary that you set. No matter how controlling you try to be, they will find a way. And you will drag yourself through the mud. You will create so many things in your head that is not healthy. Then you should just leave. That it has you paranoid. Trust and believe from experience. It will have you paranoid. And I see folks, unfortunately, make comments like, oh, I wouldn't let my partner do this. And it's just, I'm not going to let, my partner would be doing this and that. And I've gotten to this point now that I want my partner to have respect for me as much respect I have for them. But I'm not demanding to have control over their bodies or taking away their autonomy. If my partner wants to come home at 3 o'clock in the morning, I want my partner, or 5, 7 o'clock in the morning, I just want some communication. That's it. I think that saves a lot. Just communication. Like, hey, babe, I'm going out tonight, I want my partner to be able to feel like they can have conversations with me and they can also have fun. And it's not where I have to check in and I have to make sure I get home at a certain time, because I want my partner to feel like I'm having fun tonight, but I miss my baby. Like, I'm having fun, but I can't wait to come see him. I can't wait to get to the house. I want that type of thing, because it's going to be nights that your partner or whatever is going to want to do stuff, and they're going to want to not miss you in their moment. They want to get out, and they should be able to do that. They should be able to enjoy themselves. I want to get to the point where my partner can go on a trip with his friends or their friends, or whatever, and I'm not worried about the possibility of them cheating or doing whatever. I don't want to think like that. I've done that before. I do not. I don't want to feel like that I need to go through text messages and check phones and do all these other stuff. I don't want to be working a full-time job trying to prevent my partner from cheating. because that is not healthy. And I see people do it, and I'm just watching, and I'm like, oh girl, no wonder I'm single, because I'm seeing how folks are moving and the things that they do. It's just like, y'all are not truly happy. You're pretending to be happy, but you're not truly happy. You are controlling your partner. You are controlling your partner, and that's not healthy. So I loved when folks brought up that people don't want to look at the mirror, because some of the things, they don't want to call a thing, because then they will have to look at themselves and say, you know what? I've been doing that, and that's not right. No, well, I don't think that's abuse. I don't think this. And I'm just like, it is a level of it. If you are, what Jonah Hill was doing was a level of abuse. Like, he was controlling his girlfriend, his ex-girl. He was controlling her. And yes, we can talk about why she stayed and why she didn't, quote unquote, leave or whatever. But why did the person, the Jonah Hill, why did he not leave once he felt like his boundaries were not being respected? Why did he not leave? Because it's not about him, it's about control. And the boundary is unrealistic. Because if you think that it's just about him asking her not to post certain pictures, it's not just that. Because one thing we have learned, and one thing that we know, is if it's showing up in this, it's going to show up in different things. If he's controlling me and telling me what I can post on my social media and what I can wear, the control is going to show up in other stuff. The control is going to show up in other avenues of our life and our relationship. And it just won't be the Instagram, because that's not how it works. Because it's not about controlling, it's not about them, it's about controlling you, stopping you from doing things to make themselves feel comfortable. And they never will. They never will feel 100% comfortable. So it's a never ending thing. And I just don't, me personally, that's a boundary. I just don't want to be in any relationship like that. I just don't want to be in any relationship like that. And I'm just seeing way too many and folks justifying this behavior. So I'm very curious of what y'all thought when y'all saw it. How many people feel as though, you know, some of these things are a little bit controlling. They are controlling. Just be honest. Let's be honest with ourselves and say, you know what? It is a little bit controlling. Like, if you have to, like, you can't make you can't demand anybody to do anything. You can make a request, but then you also need to ask yourself, why are you making this request? Like, I can make a request and say, hey, and I have before, I don't want every time I come around family, there's a conversation about my body. And if I come to Thanksgiving dinner or Christmas and it's a conversation about my body again, then I'm going to say, hey, I'm not coming back to any family functions if I can help it. But unfortunately, a lot of folks don't have that type of, especially young folks who still live at home with their parents and stuff. They don't get to say no. But we need to be standing up for folks who are in these type of situations, because unfortunately they're not in a position to be able to say no, and they should be able to. Same thing with kids who do not want to go hug family members and stuff. Like, don't force them. Like, do not force them to do any of these things. Like, that's your uncle. Like, don't do that. Like, don't do that. The child has said, like, hey, I don't want to. I don't want to do that. And you can't make it. You should be making a child do that. But these are my thoughts. These are some thoughts, but I felt the conversation was very interesting and had me very passionate, so I said I wanted to talk about it. But let me know what y'all thought about it. Let me know what y'all thought about the whole conversation and how it makes you look into your own relationship or future relationships. Let me know in the comments, and I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.